It's Great Day Houston.
Well, you've probably heard his music at least once, if not twice or thrice. Let's go with a fifth. But how much do you know about Beethoven's journey to becoming one of the best composers of all time? Up next, some fun fact finds about the man behind some of the world's most well-known music. It's one of the most famous pieces of music ever written. Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 debuted on this day in 1824. Beethoven conducted the orchestra even after losing his hearing. Symphonies have a rich history across centuries, and they're well established here in Houston as well. Beethoven is one of the music composers to thank for transforming symphony as an art form. With more on the Beethoven sounds we all grew up hearing is celebrity historian Raffi Andonian. Before we start, one of our producers read a comment from a Beethoven fan on YouTube that said, "If you ever feel like you can't accomplish something, just remember a man who was deaf, created the most widely known symphony on planet Earth." And Raffi, that is part of the reason why you are so amazed by history and love to teach it. When we think we can't, there are so many great things we learned from history. I'm just going to go to something. I remember talking to Condoleezza Rice, because, you know, Condi and I are friends like that. But someone said, you know, are we entering the end of times? This is really bad. And she goes, no, I'll tell you what was really bad, the Civil War.
Right.
She goes, that was really
context.
bad. Yeah, context, right? Yeah,
perspective really helps, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, in 1824 today, Symphony No. 9, which would be his last symphony for Beethoven, debuted with him conducting 200 years ago today. Pretty fascinating to think about. Exactly 200 years ago. You don't get those anniversaries very often.
Yeah. Okay. I was in band. You were in orchestra. We all played something of his.
Yep.
I mean, in fact, you have. This is your violin.
I brought my childhood violin. Actually, I was a kid and I went to a symphony, and I was like maybe 5, 6 years old, and I turned to my mother and I said, I want to play violin.
Yeah. I said I want to play flute. Yeah.
And that's how I started down the journey of playing violin. To this day, I have a business called Orchestrate Business. So music affects how I look at things and how I approach things and how things, you know, fit together in symphony. Yeah.
Okay. What are the origins of orchestra symphony?
Well, you can look at it a couple different ways, but the word symphony means putting sounds together. So symphony has different versions, right? So syn, for example, S-Y-N, coming together. Think about syncretized, right? Or something like that. And phone is sound. So bringing sound together, but it didn't always start with instrument forward. So for example, you had voice forward initially. Think about the ancient Greeks. The ancient Greeks thought about the way sound connects us to like the physical and sort of other world.
And every culture does
That's
it.
right.
Every
That's
culture.
right. Because think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Because literally sound is vibration. Think about Beach Boys, right? Good vibrations. So you literally feel it. It moves your eardrum, so you feel it. So it seems a connection to the other world. And the reason that matters is because when music is developing, you have, for example, the importance of the church, Gregorian chants, right? Like kind of very meditative, right?
State.
Exactly. And that is designed to kind of connect you, but that's vocal first, not instrumental first. When symphony is developing in the 17th, 18th centuries, it's starting to bring the music first as opposed to the vocal. So the instruments start to kind of play more and more of a role forward.
It was revolutionary.
It was absolutely. Now, one of the earliest people we think of in that world is Bach, of course, and he's still kind of playing some chamber music kind of oriented stuff, which means they're using the harpsichord. So you might have heard like some of his stuff like right? So it's some of his stuff, but it's smaller groups, concertos, and so on and so forth. From there, you have the development into Haydn, who's known as the father of symphony in the 18th century. He put out 100+ symphonies himself, and he's trying to bring music forward, getting the sound larger, the band larger, the orchestra, I should say.
And just say, if you have not sat in front of a symphony orchestra when they start, it's
now the reason you feel that way is
amazing.
because of Beethoven. So when we walked out, we get there, because then Mozart comes around in the 18th century, and he's still writing. Mozart has symphonies, but he's known as an opera guy. Think about like Marriage of Figaro, right?
Yeah,
or Don Giovanni, right? So again, the vocal part is very important. But these guys, both Haydn and Mozart, what they're doing is very much orderly. They're dealing with big emotions, absolutely, but they're people of the Enlightenment. They're reason, order.
Right.
There's a structure that you communicate to the audience with. We think about songs today, there's a structure you kind of expect, right? Chorus,
Beethoven
verse,
was
chorus,
like the
verse.
jazz guy back then, because
Beethoven
jazz
comes
broke all the
in,
rules,
exactly.
right?
Funny enough, Beethoven studied under Haydn, who was extremely structured. Mozart did some experimenting, but he studied under Haydn, and he hated it. He said he was miserable. He wanted to break free from the misery. So Beethoven was kind of on a different planet in his creativity, but what was also important And I don't want to take away from Mozart and his kind of striving for perfection, but Beethoven kind of breaks the mold. And not only does he break the mold, because he makes it more emotional, which is what you just described. When you started a symphony, how that emotional power. And when he breaks the mold, he also makes it so that it's more about his connection, his feelings, and how he's projecting that through the music and taking you through a journey. So I think of Beethoven as the Led Zeppelin of the classical world, or Led Zeppelin as the Beethoven of the rock world. And let me give you a couple comparisons. One is the length. So normally a symphony, because it was often in the beginning of an opera as an overture or part of a larger piece, it was only 10 to 20 minutes. Beethoven takes it, and in Symphony Number 9 goes 70 minutes. Okay, so he shatters it. Stairway to Heaven, if you think about the classic from Led Zeppelin. You had the Beatles song, for example. I don't know, you could many of his songs.
Hey Jude, that went forever.
They're like 2 to 3 minutes, right? And so,
can I just say something real quick? When I was a DJ and I had to go to the bathroom and maybe get something to eat, I put on Hey Jude or Led Zeppelin. We put on the long songs.
And what's funny about it, the Beatles, if you think about it, is, and to see how the Led Zeppelin changes things out, connects to Beethoven, is they're writing a shorter song, 2 minutes, and you think about Led Zeppelin, they're writing a song that's 9 minutes, right? Also in Beatles, you have this simplicity and this order that's predictable, right? Love me true. Yeah, you know I love you. So that is different. So Mozart and the others have an order, right? Beethoven breaks it and surprises you.
When Queen says, "Why can't we do a song this way? We're doing Bohemian Rhapsody. It's going to be this long." Like nobody's going to buy that.
That's right. And if you listen to Stairway to Heaven closely, there's constant surprises. It is instrument forward more than vocal forward. It changes pace and it is really loud. And Led Zeppelin changed rock to make it really loud and make it heavier. Beethoven did exactly the same thing. He doubled the size of the orchestra also. That's why you get this huge volume, the same way Zeppelin. So that's how I would think of Beethoven, is really infusing and completely transfer a symphony, especially with Number 9, and the drama in it. So on Beethoven, think about Number 5, his Symphony Number 5. Dun, 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 right? Or Symphony Number 9, which is the one that's the anniversary today, is, you know, his Ode to Joy, which is a poem that he's taking and adapting. He actually brings back some of the chorus stuff, so vocals enter a symphony again. So Ode to Joy goes like this. It goes dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Dun 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 dun. And it goes through different octaves, which is a reference to what the Gregorian chanters did. And he's bringing a chorus back into the symphony. So he's playing with this stuff.
Yeah, and I love it. I'm going to sound like the smartest person the next time I go to the symphony with Margaret Alkeck Williams, who is a great philanthropist who supports our Houston Symphony. But our Houston Symphony is, 100 plus years old.
1913 is when it started, and I think it's really important to go and watch it live, because you got to feel those vibrations, especially symphony. And when you feel that emotion, they might be playing Mahler, which is a more modern composer in the 20th century. He was really loud.
They've been so cool because they've done the classical stuff that you're talking about, but they've also done like the Beatles, or they've also done like Fleetwood Mac. They do everything. I encourage you, go to the symphony orchestra, because when they do it, it's just a different feel to it. Raffi, thank you so much.
Of course.
But yeah, you connect back then to today and why it's so important for us to know our history. For more fun historical facts, or to learn more about Raffi Andonian, visit greatdayhouston.com. He also does speaking engagements, and he's so fascinating. All right, we'll be right back. All right, before I get to Emmy, can you still play?
It's out of tune.
I was going to say, it's like riding a bike, but maybe
I
not.
need to get it back on the training wheels.
Right. Hey, we spoke with singer Emmy Melly earlier in the show, speaking of music. Again, she'll be performing tonight at the House of Blues. We leave you now with her latest single, Breakthrough. Have a great day, everybody. Start practicing.
They told me